Aiden Robert was born October 23rd, 2009. He was a week late, sorry. He was a week late. I tried castor oil previously. It would start labor, but it wouldn't go anywhere. I would just have really strong contractions and not make any cervical progress. So what I ended up doing was he was born on a Friday, and what I did was, I believe that Wednesday late afternoon, I went into my chiropractor, got an adjustment and got acupuncture, went home, waited 24 hours, nothing had happened yet, and then the morning of the day he was born, the Friday, my water broke. I woke up at 5 and just kind of felt like a leak, and so I woke up my husband and I said, honey, I think my water broke. And he's like, well, what do we do? And I said, I don't know, I'm going to go to the bathroom. So I got up, walked to the bathroom, could kind of see the consistency, and I touched it because I wanted to see if it was my water, not urine. It definitely had a different consistency and look to it than urine did. Sorry, this is TMI. So went back to the bedroom, changed my undergarments, and said, yeah, it's my water, it's coming out, you know, in little bits, and called my great aunt, who has always been like a mother to me. She had previously agreed to help in the delivery of my son. So I called and told her. She said, okay, great, call the midwife. Called the midwife. We went into the birth center. Long story short, they have like these strips that they use to test and see if like your fluid, if it's actually amniotic fluid. And she had tested like 3 different strips, and all of them weren't changing the color that would indicate that it was amniotic fluid. And she said, you know, it might just be urine. You know, I'm not getting a result here. And I was like, listen, lady, I'm telling you, it's coming in spurts. It's not continuous. It's not urine. I know what it would feel like if it was urine. So she said, she gave me a little bag of the strips, and she said, okay, well, here, take some home and test, and if you get it to turn this color, call and let me know. So I felt a little gush again, and I said, oh wait, I just leaked some, let me have one of those strips. So I took a strip and I put it right up against my pad, and it changed the color, and she looked shocked. And so she said, okay, well, are you having contractions? And I said, no, not yet. We went back home, we waited. At 10 a.m. my contractions started. I had been doing laundry and dishes and just trying to make sure like all the last little bit of the stuff for the house was ready. My contractions came on strong and heavy and painful, and they lasted they were about 4 minutes apart to start, and then within an hour they were like 3 minutes. And my other aunt came to visit me, and she said, you look like you're in transition, because I was squatting and walking with my contractions. And so Roberta, my great aunt, she said, okay, well, let's go see the midwife and see what we're doing. So we had called the midwife, and they wanted to talk to me through contractions, and I wanted a silent birth. I don't want a lot of unnecessary communication, words, emotions, anything like that. So you know, I would pause. I told her I have a contraction that's coming, and I would pause, and then she said, okay, why don't you come in and we'll check you. And I was at 1.5 for a couple of weeks prior to going into labor, and I hadn't even dilated a full 1/2 centimeter. She told me I did just to kind of keep my spirits up, but in actuality I hadn't, and she told me this later. So she said, okay, well, why don't you go outside. The birth center was right on the water, pretty secluded. There weren't like busy traffic or anything like that. It was like a neighborhood. So she said, why don't you go and walk for an hour, and then I'll check you again. So by this time I had started to vomit with my contractions, which is weird because I didn't vomit with morning labor. I think I vomited twice in my first trimester. But I was vomiting between every few contractions, and my midwife had given me like this little cotton swab in a small cup, and I would smell it, and it would somewhat help with the nausea, but it didn't fully handle it. And I can recall walking and like having to brace myself onto a tree when a contraction was coming, because they were really, 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 really strong. And I was having a lot of pain in my lower back, like in my hips. So we walked, squatted, did everything we were supposed to do for an hour. At about 2:30, she checked me again, and I still hadn't made any progress. And by this time, it was 8 hours since my water had broken. And she said, why don't you go and see a chiropractor or an acupuncturist? So we went to the chiropractor that's actually a family friend of ours. He's not far from the birth center. We called and let him know what was happening. First we went home so I could shower because I'd vomit all over. And I showered and vomited again and rested, and finally went to see Dr. Cooper, I want to say 4 o'clock. Got an adjustment. I don't remember the adjustment being painful. I mean, the contractions were painful. The adjustment didn't make it any worse. It did help a bit with the back pain that I was having. He worked on the same pressure points that I had the acupuncture on 2 days before, and we went back home. I tried to rest. By this time I was so tired. I remember I was falling asleep between every contraction, which isn't very long. It's like 45 minutes or 45 seconds, and I got into the tub and I made it as hot as I could stand it, and I just laid there with on my side with half of my belly in the water, again dozing off between every contraction. And my husband came in and he said, "Honey, you can't fall asleep, you're in the tub." I was like, I'll be fine. I'm tired. I'm just sleeping between the contractions. And he was really worried that, I don't know, I was going to fall asleep and roll over into the water. So at this point, they were really, 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 really strong. And I was starting to get exhausted and feeling defeated. And I said to him, all emotional and tired and in labor, I said, "I don't know how much longer I can do this. I want to go to the birth center and get checked, and if I'm not dilated, then we're going to have to go to the hospital, and they're going to put me on Pitocin, and then I'm going to have to get an epidural, and blah, 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 blah," and my craziness. And he said, "Okay, honey, I'm going to go get Aunt Berta." So he went and got Roberta, and they helped me get out of the tub and get together, and realized it takes a while for me to get from one place to another because of the frequency of the contractions. So we finally get into the car. We get to the birth center. I want to say it's like probably 7 or so. She texts me and she says, "You're 6 centimeters." And I just remember feeling like this weight of relief. Like, yes, it's working. All this pain isn't for nothing. And I took my dress off and had another contraction, squatted down on the floor, had a couple more on the way to the tub that she'd been filling up, got into the tub, and I just remember this feeling, just this, I mean, I could still feel the pain, but it was definitely not as severe, and it didn't feel overwhelming anymore. I think too, knowing that it was actually doing what it was supposed to do made me feel better. So at this point I kind of lost track of time. I remember starting to feel this tightening in my stomach, and I had rectal pressure on the way to the birth center, and that's I think what made me, when I was in the tub, go, "We need to go get looked at." So at this point I'm in the tub, and I start to feel intense pressure, and my stomach is just kind of bearing down on its own. I'm pushing without trying to push. And I remember the midwife telling me, "Blow like you're blowing out candles," and I'm sitting there trying to not push until she can check me and check the heart rate and everything. And so she checked me, and there was what do they call it, a lip or a rim or whatever, and she just kind of held it out of the way for a minute, and then I started to push. And I remember in pushing, just feeling exterior to myself. I just remember thinking, okay, this is it. This is the last of it. And just kind of feeling I stepped back and just let my body do what it had to do. I ended up pushing for about an hour. His head came out, but the rest of him didn't. So I had to stand up in the tub, put one leg up on the tub, and the midwife pulled him as I pushed. He came out. I somehow sat back down. I remember standing up and my legs shaking, when you work your arms out too hard and they shake and you don't know if you can hold anything. But I was able to keep it together and get him out and sit back down. And he was very blue because I think the cord was around his head too, but also being upside down for quite a bit of time, and the time it took between his head to come out and the rest of his body. The midwife said his shoulders didn't pivot when in a vaginal delivery the head comes out, and it pivots on its own, and then the shoulders and the rest of the body come out. He didn't do that. As she said, he came out like a linebacker with his shoulders up. And Robert was born at 10:52 on October 23rd, 2009. He weighed 9 pounds, 6 ounces, and was 22.5 inches long. That is a big baby, regardless, but that is definitely a big baby for your first, and to do it vaginally and naturally and drug-free. I just felt this high of oh my God, not only am I a mother, my dream has come true and I'm a mother, but I did it the way I wanted to do it, and I did it drama free and drug free, and it was so empowering. And I had this kind of in the back of my head, this fear that for whatever reason I wouldn't be able to deliver the way I wanted to, because my mom had 3 C-sections. I'm one of 3. And the reason she had them was she was told while in labor with my older sister for 72 hours that her birth canal was just too small and the baby wouldn't pass through. So obviously I didn't have that problem. We were at a birth center, so we went home within a few hours. After he was born, I was moved into the bed, and I just remember shaking, and they were like, "Are you cold?" And I was like, "I guess so. I mean, I don't really feel anything." So they covered me up, and I got to nurse him for a while, and I really had a lot of time to just bond with him before they took him to, like, weigh him and measure him. I mean, it must have been at least an hour before they did all of that, and I got up and I went to the bathroom. They helped me to the bathroom because I was going to, like, try to use the toilet and then take a shower. And I remember walking there and just getting to the bathroom, and, like, I thought I fell asleep. I woke up. I was on the toilet. I saw socks I didn't recognize, and somebody, the midwife, had said my name very intently. And there was an oxygen tank all of a sudden in front of me, and I said, what? And they said, "Brittany, what happened?" And it's like, I fell asleep. And I thought I just fell asleep because I'd fallen asleep through all the rest of my labor. Why wouldn't I fall asleep now? And she checked my blood pressure and my pulse and all that stuff, and she said, "No, honey, you definitely passed out. Your pulse is really low." So they were like, "We're going to have you eat something and get some sugars in your body, and then you can try to take a shower." So we did. I think I had like a soda or something and some food, and from then on everything was fine with me. With that big of a baby being pulled out, I thought, oh my God, I probably tore from end to end, even though I didn't feel that way. That was my fear, was that I would tear and need stitches, and I don't know why that was such a big fear, but it was. So one of the first questions I asked the midwife was, "Did I tear?" And she said, "I have to see." So once they took him to go weigh him and measure him, that's when she checked me out, and she said, "There's a slight internal tear, which I guess is better than an external tear." She said, "We're going to give you just a couple stitches." And I remember trying to, like, talk her out of it. Like, "No, just let it be. It's fine, right? We can just let it be." And she was like, "Well, you can, but, there's a chance that it could heal incorrectly and cause pain, later on when you're having sex." And I was like, "Oh, okay, fine." So they gave me a little shot of something down there, and it was 2 stitches, and that was it. I had no problem with that healing. I did skip, like, my first postpartum checkup because I didn't want them to, like, check down there. Like, obviously the area is really sensitive after you give birth and sore. So I don't, maybe it wasn't the first, it was like the second postpartum checkup. But Aiden did great. I had a beautiful drug-free water birth in a birth center and was home a few hours later to be with my family. So I'm very blessed to have had the labor and delivery that I had, and so proud of myself and my husband for helping me through it all. And Aubrey's birth story was much easier, and I'm going to record that soon and try to get it up for you guys. So I hope you enjoyed and found this helpful in some way, and let me know if you have any questions. Bye.